Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine. I am with Community CPA. Every day at 3 p.m. we have a webinar, and Thursdays is kind of our special day. We have our guests coming to join us to speak on their topics of expertise. So today we have the St. Paul Area Chamber here with us. B. Kyle is the president and CEO of the Chamber, and she'll be talking about business relationships and networking. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Catherine, you're delightful. Thanks for having me.
So as we're thinking about, some of the reasons that building that network is important, can you talk about what you've seen in terms of its importance to business and or someone's professional development?
I can't say enough about the importance of networking in terms of building your professional resume, your connections, your value to an organization. I used to believe, again, when I was really struggling with my lack of success in networking, that it was what you know, not who you know. I thought I can just be smart enough, I can just work hard enough, and I don't need to know anybody in order to do that. And I mean, to some degree, if you're really talented, absolutely. For those of us perhaps who aren't on the ends of the scale in terms of amazingness, it's a combination of talent and connections. And so the most connected people are often the ones who are most successful. It's as simple as that. Networking allows you to be in the know about trends, business shifts, the job market. Networking allows you to potentially find a mentor, find a friend, find a client. We also tend to do business with people we know and like. So you start creating relationships with new people. You can learn how to engage professionally. You can go into a networking event and watch and listen and learn how others more polished perhaps than you do it. And then ultimately, as you develop your networking and your community over time, you can exchange information, you can exchange resources, you can exchange opportunities. I got my first job in St. Paul at the St. Paul Port Authority through networking. I know I wanted to do a job change. I know I wanted to work in St. Paul. I was networking through my female network, my women network. And one of those ultimately said, hey, did you know the Port Authority's hiring? And I applied and was fortunate enough to get the job. So Harvey McKay, How to Swim with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten. He tells a story about how he went into a job interview with his Rolodex. Oh, last generation, I know, but nonetheless, a Rolodex, sat it on the desk and said, that's my value to you. And particularly the more senior you get, well, I mean, if you're junior, you got to build a book of business, which means you've got to get out there and practice, right? And then you're going to build relationships, because as you rise in the ranks of the business community, so do all these other new colleagues that you've met in your networking events. And before you know it, as you get a little bit more senior, you've got this rich network of people across the community, and you know who to call for what. And you can trust folks because you already have a history with them. So it is absolutely critical, particularly as you want to develop your own career.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really great visual that you gave. So as you're thinking about networking and putting yourself out there, what are some effective tips and tools that you have for effective networking?
Well, I'll give you 10 tips. And by the way, Catherine, I'm assuming if you're watching on live, if there are people who have comments, I'm very open to you sharing those with me throughout this. So let me know if anybody asks a question, all right?
All right, I will.
So here are my 10 tips for effective networking, all right? So number one, you gotta determine what networking style works for you, which means you do you. Don't do me, you do you. You got to leverage your strengths. So if you're quieter, find someone else in the room who looks quiet and all by themselves. Go talk to that one person. If you, the mistake many of us make is forcing ourselves to network or pretending to be extroverted or be somebody we're not. I tried that unsuccessfully for a long time. So number one, determine what networking style works for you and do you. You don't have to be in a bar to network. You can decide you love quilting or running or the theater or the library, and you can find other like-minded people, and shocker, they all work too, right? And you can build a network and do something you love. So number one. Number two is to think outside the box, which is what I was just talking about here. Think about organizations and bodies of work and spaces that matter to you. Volunteer, find like-minded people, and so that's number two. Number three is arrive early. If you do go to a networking event, don't be afraid to go early. There will be fewer people there, but there will be fewer people, and some of them will be either standing alone or in smaller groups, and you'll be able to actually approach them. You walk into a horde, and you're not quite sure how to begin because everyone looks engaged except for you. So show up early, find a person to talk with, and that makes it a little bit easier. Number four is to make a game plan. So when I head into an activity or an event, I start with a goal, and I set my goals very low because again, it was really hard for me. So I decided instead of needing to meet 10 people or some thing where I'm running around the room trying to introduce myself, my goal for networking was very simple. It was, I'm going to find one person, just one, to have a meaningful conversation with this evening. And that was it. And that's still my goal today. That allows me to sit down with Catherine and actually commit to knowing Catherine. I don't have to get past you because I've got 3 more I need to get to, right? It allowed me to exhale and not worry about anybody else that was coming or going. I wouldn't look over Catherine's shoulder to see who I was missing in the room. And then we could get to know each other, and it was lovely. And I would tell you that one thing for me was the life changer in terms of my relationship building. I just decided to get to know Catherine in that moment. And at my next meeting, I might meet Tong. I can see Tong's in the event here. And I'm just going to get to know him. And you think you need to go slow to go fast. You need to build real relationships to make real progress, and that takes time. So that was really helpful. That's number 4, make a game plan. Number 5, seek to discover what they treasure. You, Catherine, are a human first. Before you're a potential client, before you are a potential partner, and you are endlessly interesting. I already know what I know. I don't need to say out loud what I know. I'd rather hear what you know, and then I leave somehow better. So for me to spend time with you in networking is to seek to discover what you treasure. Because once you start talking about what you love, we're going to find something in common. We'll have all kinds of things to talk about, and things come naturally. Number 6 would be authentic. Again, we were talking about that a little earlier, and listen. Your curiosity is very attractive. I can't tell you, the less you talk, the more interesting a conversationalist you become, right? So, I mean, if someone asks you an interested question in return, you don't need to avoid as opposed because you want to listen the whole time. But the idea is you already know what you know. I want to learn what you know. I want to learn from you, Catherine. What are you going to tell me? And that curiosity is very attractive. Number 2, don't hesitate. Also, as part of this one, the second point is don't hesitate to share something personal about yourself. Particularly now, there's more permission to bring more of you to any kind of a networking event. And indeed, particularly with young people who feel they need to do a certain thing a certain way, a little authenticity, a little humanness is quite interesting, actually. So whether it's you're training your dog, or you've got a reunion coming up, or you're training for a race, or, being real is interesting to us too. The third point under being authentic is to go into a networking event or an introduction wanting to know what the other person wants, is looking for, needs. Okay, number 7 would be to know your audience. Really important here. Sometimes you're going to go into a networking event, particularly as an accountant, and you are, it's like bankers and accountants and attorneys. And in what I was doing in sales, sometimes that environment is a little suspicious of those of us who serve, the accountants, the attorneys, the insurance agents, the bankers. And so just know your audience. Sometimes it's just a good space to listen and learn and not be too forward, because particularly if it's like a trade association, folks tend to be a little bit more closed to those of us who serve. So I used to be working in the manufacturing sector, and I'm on the board of the Minnesota Precision Manufacturing Association. And a banker came to me and said, "Hey, B, I want to get into the manufacturing community. How do I do it?" And that's a very interesting market for those of us who serve, those of you who serve. And my advice to him was show up, volunteer, spend money, and don't talk. Do those 4 things, give it 5 years, and you'll have made some connections. I know it sounds extreme, but that's the environment. He did the first 3, show up, volunteer, spend money, 4, shut up. And then within 2 years, he was on the board of the Manufacturing Association. So he was highly successful, and he's a good guy too, right? So that matters. Number 8, learn how to disengage. When you're networking and you find yourself finding another quiet person in the room, you go stand to this person, you're listening, and you're having a lovely conversation. At some point, one of you is going to want to disengage. It's really important to be, when it's you, here's how you do it. When it's the other person, here's how you respond. All you need to do when you're ready to move on is simply say, "It was really a pleasure meeting you. I hope to see you again. Have a nice evening," and leave. Not, "I'm sorry," not, "it was really was a pleasure meeting you. I look forward to knowing you," and leave. If the other person says that to you, there's no need to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Of course." The simple response is, "It was really nice to meet you too. Have a nice evening," and move on. And don't put anything into it besides, you had a moment, you made that connection, you'll see that person another time. That's a nice little trick. Number 9, follow up. I can't tell you the number of times I have met with someone in a networking environment, particularly if I meet a young person.
Right.
And, "Oh, I really would love to fill in the blank." And I say, "That would be great. You have my card, let me know." And then what I'll tell students especially is, "I'm not going to chase you. So you have my card, you have my invitation. I look forward to talking to you again." And I wait on that person to circle back. "It was nice to meet you," type an email. "I look forward to buying you coffee. Here are some dates that might work. Are you available and interested?" So often folks don't follow up, which, is okay. But if you really want to follow up and meet someone, no business is done in that networking event. It's the connection, it's the touch point, it's the, do we have something in common? The next meeting, which is coffee or lunch, is the opportunity to talk a little bit about business, right? So you got to follow up and connect via LinkedIn. What I do, I make a phone call. You never get anybody on the phone. Leave a message. Immediately send an email. "I just left you a voicemail. I look forward to talking to you." And my rule is I send 1 email, and I wait a week, just moving this up in your inbox. If I still don't get any response after 2, then I wait about a month and I try again a 3rd time. And after that, I stop. Because I don't want to be known as, "This is the 5th time I've heard from that person." They don't want to talk to me, that's okay too.
Right.
So number 10, one special trick. My favorite salesperson was Zig Ziglar. If you haven't listened to him, find the time to listen to him. He was just magical. And he says, "You can get everything you want if you help enough other people get what they want." And it's true. So figure out how to serve and give first, and you'll be surprised at the rewards that follow.
Thank you for those tips. I really like that you talk about, being present in the conversation you have with somebody to make that genuine connection, right? And then following up with it. So as we think about how we can transition from that superficial acquaintance at one time to a more trusting and long-term business relationship, I know you mentioned the follow-up. Are there some other techniques and tips that you have regarding that?
Sure. Here's some ideas about transitioning from a superficial acquaintance to a more of a long-term relationship, and then perhaps some boundaries with networking. I have been to events where I watched a young man hand out business cards like a deck of cards. He just went around the room and laid them on the table, and he kept going. I was just quite shocked, actually. So you know that that's not the way to do it, right? So when you think about how to transition, the key is about time and contact. So you meet someone, whether it is in a traditional networking environment or through one of your own passions, and you found somebody you find interesting, you want to talk more about business with that person, you make a phone call, you send an email, you find time to buy this person coffee, and you have a conversation. Relationships aren't built on one cup of coffee. And so one of the reasons the chamber is so valuable, and one of the things I value most about the chamber, is we give you opportunities to come into contact with one another. It's about visit with that person, have a conversation, rinse and repeat. Do it again and do it again. And the way you do it again is by volunteering. So is there a committee you can be on? Is there a volunteering opportunity? Is there a board you can serve on? Is there a project you want to work on? I mean, yes, it's work, but the way I get to know Catherine without staring at Catherine all the time and making her tell me everything about her is to work alongside Catherine, and we learn about one another as we're doing something else. It's typically how men communicate, the whole parallel play thing. Well, that's when you're networking. It's a lovely way to get to know someone and build a relationship over time. When I think about the etiquette or how to go deeper, here's another trick for you too. If you meet a lot of people, I might forget my conversation with Catherine, or I not remember if I met her. So when I'm done with my introductory meeting with you and you've given me your card, I'm going to write on your card what I remember about you. And I'm going to put it in my Outlook. So then when we start serving together and we're volunteering on a committee together, I'm going to kind of keep a few notes. Oh, Catherine went to this school, or she really likes this, or we talked about one of her favorites is. And it helps me remind myself about who Catherine is, so that the next time we see one another, I can say, hey, how was? Or you told me about this. And sooner or later, I'll get to know you well enough so I won't have to write things down, because we'll actually be in a relationship. So those would be some ideas about kind of how to take it to the next level. It's about time together, rinse and repeat. Get on something you can serve on and do it together, and use the Chamber of Commerce, whichever one fits your style and your rhythm, and participate, because that's where you're going to build the connections that count.
Awesome. So you mentioned a bit about how the chamber facilitates some of these networks. How does somebody get connected, and what are some of the other opportunities through the chamber?
So, I mean, that's a really good question. We're a very large organization, right? And so if we've got 1,700 members and affiliates, those companies and organizations represent like 3 million people. Well, goodness, how am I supposed to find my way in a large room, much less a large organization, right? It can be a really tall wall that you have to scale when you approach a large organization. So in other things, in networking as in other things, you think small. You take one bite at a time. You only need to meet one person. That's it. You don't need to meet 1,700 or 3 million. You need to meet one. The power of one is ever so critical in chambers. You need to, when you join a chamber, our chamber, we've structured it to facilitate that. So one of the attendees on the webinar, Tong Tao, is the St. Paul Area Chamber's membership retention manager. And his job is to talk to Catherine and say, tell me about yourself. What do you like? What are you interested in? What kind of time, what kind of availability? What are you looking for? And then he provides kind of an engagement plan that says, here are suggestions we have to help you get plugged in. And then you scale that wall one person at a time. You're going to meet one person to get to know that one person. And before you know it, he or she is going to introduce you to somebody else. And as you serve and as you get involved and as you attend networking and mixers, you're going to start meeting people. And before you know it, you'll say, oh, Tom, here you are. I haven't seen you. B, how are you? And it will become more natural. But it does take time and intentionality. And so the chamber structures not only our team to serve you and help you through that initial process, but also we create events that allow for or are specifically designed around networking. And some are for small business, some of them are by sector. Some of them are evening, lunch, morning, to mix it up and give lots of people opportunity to find their way.
Awesome. So I know you mentioned Tong, so I will say that the Tong and the Chamber, they are going to be honored at the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit over on June 11th. So we're very excited to have you at the event and looking forward to that. So it is another
Well, we're delighted.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. And let me try to see if I can share the screen one more time to show how somebody could contact you. What is the best way for that?
Well, Tom Collins is our relationship manager. If you go to St. Paul Area Chamber, stpaulchamber.com, there you go.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate to reach out. I will tell you, Catherine, we talk about there's room at the table. So imagine yourself going to Thanksgiving dinner and you're going with a friend and you don't know that friend's family very well, and you walk in and there's 20 people in the room and they're all sitting around the table, and you walk in and you know how family is. They all welcome and they all scooch. So at the St. Paul Area Chamber, we practice the art of scooching because there's room at the table, and that's Tong's job. So anyone who's looking for a seat at the table, and we're happy to scooch, make room, plug you in, please do feel free to reach out. And we're glad that Community CPA got a chance to meet Sing Ya and Dan Kim. Gosh, it's been since September of 2019 that we had a chance to meet for the first time. And I said, Sing Ya, please forgive me. I meant Ying Sa, forgive me for that. But anyway, that's how we do it. And I look forward to getting to know you a little bit too, Catherine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time here. We really appreciate you sharing your experience, and we're looking forward to keeping the communication. So
us as well.
Thank you so much, Bea, and thank you for everyone who's attended. So we'll see you again Saturday at 3 p.m.
Thanks so much.